There are several characteristics typical of every robustly left-wing state in history. The first that spring to mind are genocide, famine and failure, but those usually take a year or two to evolve. What defines all those states from the outset is a desire to control information. All the most leftist states in history have focused on censorship and propaganda from day one. The focus is to give the party a monopoly on truth. So all publications are shut down, all media strictly policed, and all dissidents cancelled, usually through brutal methods. But the truth that then flows from the party organs has been, in every single case, a mountain of lies. And this culture of deceit forms the foundation for all the genocide, famine, and horrors to come. This culture was successfully lampooned in George Orwell's Ministry of Truth, and now America's Democrats are set to follow in this ignoble tradition, because the Department of Homeland Security has now established a misinformation board to police what we're all allowed to say. Yes, that's right. The current Democratic Party, defined by incompetence, ignorance and spite, are to be the new arbiters of truth and decency. And if that doesn't fill you with terror, then you haven't been paying attention. Remember, these are the people who lied about Russian collusion, who lied about Hunter Biden's laptop, who lied about BLM and their mostly peaceful riots, who lied about Jussie Smollett, who lied about the Wuhan lab leak and virtually every other aspect of the pandemic of the last 2 years. Yet these same people are now appointing themselves as the arbiters of truth for the rest of us. And this is also the man who said he wanted to unite America. But he's currently denouncing 80 million Trump voters as extremists, while dismissing the extremists of Antifa as an idea. Under his watch, America's more divided and more hostile than at any time since the Civil War. And the Democrats look set to become even more vindictive. The exact details of how this department will be run are yet to be released. But I think we can make some pretty well-informed guesses of what to expect. For a start, I don't think the government's pals at CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times, or elsewhere, have anything to fear. They'll still get a blank check to peddle as much misinformation as they want. No, this bill will give the media a free pass, while amping up the already white-hot levels of online censorship. The government censors will be targeting the little people. It will be you and I who'll feel the pinch, while our smug liberal elites will go on disseminating as much disinformation as they please. And we can be sure this legislation will be as slanted and partisan as everything else they touch. In charge of this new body is 33-year-old Nina Jankowicz, who's quite the history of disinformation herself. Early in the pandemic, she posted anti-face mask propaganda, before later performing an about-face. She supported the completely false stories about Russian collusion, and she claimed that ISIS would be emboldened during Trump's presidency. In fact, they fell. She also dismissed stories of critical race theory in Loudoun County as disinformation for profit. But later investigations have revealed the truth of those allegations. Jankowicz even spread the lie that the Hunter Biden laptop story was also Russian propaganda. She claimed that disinformation experts say there are multiple red flags that raise doubts about the email's authenticity, including questions about whether the laptop actually belongs to Hunter Biden. She further claimed of the laptop that We should view it as a Trump campaign product. She even called the story a Russian op and a fairy tale. A fairy tale that, unfortunately for her, turned out to be 100% true. And she's also shown a taste for totalitarianism. When COVID first appeared, she enthusiastically yelled, "So force away! Lock us down!" This glee for control and tendency to misinformation is a dangerous combination. The Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, went on record to say that Yankovic was eminently qualified, a renowned expert in the field, and absolutely neutral. Now, nobody is absolutely neutral, so that's a brazen, barefaced lie. Sadly typical of the most committed leftists whose religious zeal leads them to confuse their cast iron prejudices with objective reality. So, not a great start. As for Yankovic being eminently qualified and a renowned expert in the field, well, here's how she reacted to her appointment.
It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice or vote. Oh, information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origin seems slightly less atrocious.
That should set off a few alarm bells. But even more worrying is that Mayorkas announced the board would tackle disinformation ahead of the November midterms. For the government to seek to control information directly before an election is pure Stalinism. And it should terrify any lover of democracy or liberty, or anyone with a functioning brain. It should be especially worrying that the main qualification of the head of this board is that she's previously used the term disinformation a lot, even while she's spreading disinformation. And if we look at 2 more films of Yankovic, we can see exactly where this is headed.
There's already this idea, this allegation that there is anti-conservative bias on the platforms, even though there has been study after study proving, in fact, that often it's liberal voices that are being silenced, particularly minority voices on social media. So I think we're going to see more allegations of that or misleading information that uses gendered tropes. So it might be, for instance, this is a big one that we tracked in the report, Kamala Harris slept her way to the top. Or it might be that Jacinda Ardern, another one that we found, is actually a man. So we might see racist tropes about, name it. I mean, Ilhan Omar is a favorite for this sort of racist sexual rhetoric that's compounded. The idea that she married her brother to immigrate to the United States, for instance. But then we see racialized narratives, things like Kamala ain't black, hashtag Kamala ain't black is one that we tracked. Things that are saying that she's not black enough, she's not South Asian enough to claim that heritage. Same thing goes against AOC. So rather than write the word bitch, they will use an exclamation point instead of an I.
Now, in the first of those clips, Yankovic is in denial of objective reality. She's spreading disinformation yet again, while refusing to accept the truth that conservatives are subject to more censorship online than liberals or minorities. In fact, both liberals and minorities can threaten violence or death online, while conservatives are continually banned for telling the truth or for airing decidedly moderate opinions. I've made dozens of films on this topic, with hundreds, if not thousands, of individual cases and pieces of evidence forwarded as proof. And the studies she cites are clearly just more left-wing, big tech propaganda and lies. The woman being put in charge of online censorship is in denial of the driving force behind online censorship. The woman in charge of misinformation online is spreading misinformation about the nature of online debate. And the second of those films was just as revealing. Because who does she speak up to defend? It's Kamala Harris, Jacinda Ardern, Ilhan Omar, AOC. All left-wing female politicians. You know, people just like Yankovic. So here's her agenda laid bare. The persecution of conservatives can continue and will be encouraged because she denies it exists, while she'll use her powers to prevent left-wing politicians from being criticised. And the sad fact is, we all knew this before even beginning to dig up the evidence. The best argument against the control of information has always been this. Who gets to decide? Who should have the power to adjudicate on truth, on what speech is permitted, and on what is banned? Because nobody should have that much power. And I certainly can't think of anyone less qualified to police the narrative, to pass judgment on what's true and what's false, on who should have the liberty to speak and who should be gagged, than the censorious, clueless rabble that make up the Democratic Party right now. For the government to control information is the most appalling overreach imaginable. Just when we thought the Biden administration couldn't get any more incompetent, they're beginning to slide into dystopian horror. They're not just useless. They're actually evil. The reason we encourage free speech and debate is because that's how you get the truth. You don't get there through some clueless millennial like Jankovic arbitrarily deciding on reality and handing down her judgments to the rest of us. All you end up with then is a false narrative protected from any challenge. That's what's been increasingly happening online, in the media, and in wider politics. That's what the Democrats want to inflict on us. And that's exactly where misinformation comes from. All ideas need to be exposed to the bright light of day, to come under critique and scrutiny to see how they bear up. But the left, as ever, want to seal their own ideological worldview in aspic, while shutting down any criticism or awkward questions. And you can be sure they'll have millions of enablers in this quest. Because they always do. This isn't just a disgusting infringement of liberties. It's decidedly dangerous. If you want to support this channel, please like, subscribe, and think about buying my books. They're called The Tyranny of the Left, and they go into topics like this in much greater detail. They're available on the links below. Please feel free to pick them up and let me know what you think. Thank you.